There is a strong possibility of a return to fighting in the Gaza Strip as Hamas is violating the ceasefire agreement and blames Israel. The IDF has cancelled leave for combat soldiers and is mobilizing forces to be ready to resume hostilities if needed. And meanwhile, United States President Donald Trump has weighed in, declaring that the system of slowly releasing the hostages in small groups has run its course and it's time for all the hostages to be released by Saturday or, as he said, all hell will break loose. He made this statement after Hamas announced on Sunday evening that they will delay the release of 3 more hostages this coming Saturday due to unspecified violations of the ceasefire agreement by Israel. The Hamas statement said that Israel must compensate Hamas for these violations before any more hostages will be released. In response, the IDF immediately raised the alert level and began deploying large forces to the Gaza border area. The intelligence echelon assesses that this move by Hamas is another part of the endless head games that they are trying to play with Israel. They want to try and push Israel to accept terms for a second phase of the ceasefire agreement, but Israel is not going to put up with this time. President Trump is also not putting up with it and has decided that it's time to wrap things up. He declared that the current procedure of releasing a few hostages at a time is taking too long, putting the remaining hostages at risk and causing endless hardships and suffering amongst the families of the hostages. He added that the United States will own Gaza. The Palestinians will have no right to return. This is taking things a step further than what he was previously speaking about in regards to turning Gaza into a Riviera of the Middle East after evacuating the current population. And furthermore, Trump is directly threatening Jordan and Egypt with a cutoff in aid if they refuse to accept Palestinian refugees from the Gaza Strip. This direct threat from an American president comes one day before he is scheduled to meet King Abdullah of Jordan for the first time since taking office. But after the bombshell announcement from Hamas, what are Israel's real options? We also need to ask ourselves what prompted this move. Meanwhile, on the northern front, the Americans are setting a firm deadline of February 18th for the IDF to withdraw from Lebanon, even though Hezbollah is trying to maneuver its way back into power. The IDF is planning to use every minute from now until the deadline to clear the area of weapons and ammunition because everyone knows that the Lebanese National Army is not up to the task. And also, the IDF is continuing to carry out strikes on Hezbollah weapons depots and other strategic targets, especially smuggling routes and tunnels along the Syrian border area. Meanwhile, in the operation in northern Samaria, the IDF continues to engage the Hamas terrorists and other armed groups who are threatening the Israeli heartland. In recent days, dozens of terrorists have been eliminated and hundreds more arrested in Operation Iron Wall in Samaria. We have a lot to talk about today, so let's dive into the details. I'm Yair Pinto, and this is your Boots on the Ground report about what is happening in Israel on day 494 of the war with Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, the Shiite militias in Iraq, and all the other armed groups threatening Israel, all of which are operating under the command of the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps of Iran, which is the head of the axis of evil in the Middle East. A moment before we start, I want to invite you to click on that subscribe button if you haven't already, so that you'll never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. I also want to give you a chance to be part of something very powerful, as Israel is rebuilding after unimaginable destruction, acres of forests lost in the fires, but together we can restore what was taken. Stay tuned to find out how you can make a lasting impact and help renew the land of Israel. I also want to take a moment to thank again the brave soldiers and security forces who continue fighting to keep Israel safe and work tirelessly to bring our hostages back home. This past year, during my IDF reserve service, I witnessed firsthand the sacrifices that these recruits make, some of them even in their 30s and 40s, serving more than 200 days a year. It's an incredible commitment, but it's also a heavy burden, both emotionally and physically. For me, faith was my anchor. Praying every day gave me the strength to push forward. But I also found a practical boost in Vinya, an incredible Israeli innovation made from red grape cells. Vinya enhances blood flow to your heart, brain, and muscles, helping you feel more energetic, focused, and ready to take on the day. It's a natural way to support your body without the sugar or alcohol found in grapes. What's more, Vinya isn't just capsules. You can also enjoy it as coffee or tea every morning, giving you a fresh, healthy start to your day. I use it daily during my military service, and I still do. So if you want to feel the difference for yourself, visit www.vinyatbnisrael.com or call 800-638-1944. Trust me, you won't regret it. Now, let's get into the news. And shortly after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's speech in the Knesset on Monday evening, in which he spoke about fulfilling all the objectives of the war, including eliminating Hamas and bringing home all the hostages, Hamas's military wing spokesperson Abu Obeida also made a speech. He said that the terror organization is postponing until further notice the release of the 3 hostages who were supposed to be released this coming Saturday. According to him, the delay comes in wake of repeated violations of the agreement by Israel, and it will remain in effect until Israel recommits to the agreement and compensates for the events of recent weeks. An Israeli spokesperson immediately issued a statement rejecting the claims and accusing Hamas of violating the agreement. This also takes into account that a team of Israeli negotiators returned from Doha, Qatar on Monday and said that they'd made it clear to the mediators that Hamas's conduct, both in its violation of the agreement and in its militant rhetoric and baseless accusations that Israel is violating the agreement, could lead to escalation and endanger the continuation of the ceasefire. In addition, Israel clarified in the Doha talks that it stands by the conditions of the agreement, having withdrawn from the Netzarim route, opened the Rafah border crossing with Egypt, and retreated to the Gaza perimeter area. Let's take a moment to review some important points. Under the ceasefire agreements, 33 hostages are supposed to be released from Hamas captivity in the Gaza Strip in the first phase. So far, 5 releases have been carried out and 16 Israeli hostages have been released, as well as 5 Thai hostages. There are 3 phases left in the first stage of this agreement, during which 17 hostages are supposed to be released. In the Knesset plenum on Monday evening, Netanyahu emphasized, "I am determined to bring all of them back, both the living and those that have fallen." Defense Minister Israel Katz added that, in parallel with the situation assessment he's conducting with Netanyahu and other ministers, Hamas' announcement about stopping the release of the Israeli hostages is a complete violation of the ceasefire agreement and the hostage release deal. According to him, "I instructed the IDF to prepare at the highest level of readiness for any possible scenario in the Gaza Strip and for defense of the communities. We will not allow a return to the reality of October 7th. However, it is also important to point out that in the defense establishment, it is believed that the crisis that Hamas created is meant to put pressure on Israel to move forward in negotiations on the second phase. The defense establishment estimates that neither Hamas nor Israel is interested at this stage in terminating the ceasefire agreement. They believe that within hours or a few days at most, the mediators and the Americans will succeed in resolving the crisis. However, alongside these optimistic assessments, the IDF and the defense establishment are preparing for an escalation and return to fighting. In the Southern Command, they have already prepared strike plans and a target bank throughout the Gaza Strip. The IDF says that forces are deployed in such a way that, given an order to open fire, the forces can launch an attack within a short time. At the same time, it was decided in the IDF to suspend all leaves for all combat forces in all sectors, as well as in the entire training corps of the IDF. As previously mentioned, United States President Donald Trump is also weighing in, making remarks in response to the Hamas move late Monday evening. In his remarks, Trump said that if all the hostages are not released by Saturday at 12 noon, I would cancel the ceasefire, let hell break loose.
Well, I would say this, and I'm going to let that be because that's Israel's decision, but as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2, all hell is going to break out.
And according to him, he will talk about setting that deadline together with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Here at TBN Israel, we will stay tuned and report on every development in the diplomatic sphere, and we invite you to help us share the truth. Share these videos on YouTube and follow us on social media. Of course, it's also very important to click on the subscribe button if you haven't already. This really helps us reach more people with the truth. And speaking of the truth, I have a few things I need to tell you about the statement from the Hamas terrorist organization that everyone should know. To start with, it is very obvious that Hamas is playing for time and the hostages are its best hope for survival at this point. Israel must respond decisively or we'll find ourselves facing endless demands and delays. Even the mediators themselves attest that Israel has met all the stipulated conditions, including the careful release of Palestinian terrorists and even the evacuation of the Netzarim route, which was a surrender of one of the IDF's major military achievements of this war. But beyond the mutual accusations, the main question that arises is why Hamas chose to issue this ultimatum precisely now, and what's the strategic significance behind it. Hamas sees itself as having achieved significant gains. Israel vacated the Netzarim route. Thousands of aid trucks are entering the Gaza Strip, the Rafah crossing has reopened, and there is also Iranian backing which has intensified following meetings that senior Hamas officials held in Tehran. Up until now, Hamas has scarcely responded to the Palestinian relocation plan presented by the United States, but it may see an opportunity now to declare that we're here and we're not going anywhere. Hamas also fully understands the political pressure within Israel and the coalition's objections to continuing the war. It estimates that Netanyahu will not proceed with Phase B, and therefore it is trying to pressure him publicly via the families and the Israeli public. Hamas has a clear interest in prolonging the negotiations as much as possible. For it, time is the most precious resource, and it is using every minute to rebuild its infrastructure, reconstitute its forces, gather weaponry, and prepare for the next round of fighting. With all of that in mind, Israel must prepare for a return to active hostilities as well, whether we want to or not. One way we're preparing for this is repairing the damage that already has been done during this current round of fighting. Since October 7th, Israel has faced devastating destruction. Thousands of rockets have scarred this land and over 57,000 acres of forests have been lost. But now we have an opportunity to restore and rebuild. As we approach Tu B'Shvat, the holiday of planting and renewal, we invite you to take part in a movement of hope and healing. Every tree we are planting represents resilience, faith, and renewal. These trees will rise from the ashes, standing tall as symbols of Israel's strength and determination. Now, it's time for you to take part in this effort. So please go to www.tbn.org/rebuildisrael and make a contribution that will help sow the seeds for a better tomorrow. Your support will directly help replant the land and renew the future of Israel. Because love is stronger than hate. Faith is stronger than destruction, and together we will rise again. Thank you, and now back to the news, and we're switching our focus to the northern sector. 8 days before the IDF withdraws from the first line of villages in southern Lebanon, IDF sources confirmed that the Lebanese army has taken up positions in the second line of villages in southern Lebanon and began a significant deployment in the area. The IDF estimates that next week forces will leave those areas in which the IDF is present in Lebanon and will station themselves along the blue line. In recent weeks, the IDF has carried out a series of activities to clear weapons and ammunition depots that Hezbollah managed to hide during this war. Among other things, the IDF located launchers and ammunition depots in the Litani area as well as in several areas in southern Lebanon. These weapons and ammunitions were meant to be used to attack Israel, but they won't be able to do that through Hezbollah anymore. So here at TBN Israel, we will continue to post regular updates about what is happening in Israel in real time. In between video reports, you can stay tuned by checking our website on tbnisrael.com. We now move to Judea and Samaria sector, where the IDF's operational tempo has had to increase over the last 24 hours. Shin Bet, Ya'alam, and IDF fighters carried out arrest operations on Sunday evening in Jenin, taking a senior terrorist suspect into custody. The suspect was named as Ala Eldin Bitawi, one of Hamas's leaders in the camp who planned to carry out attacks along with other terrorists against Israelis. He was arrested in the village of Shilat El Hartiya in the Jenin area, together with several other wanted suspects. During their arrest, a pistol was seized and several explosive devices were located and destroyed by the forces on site. The wanted individuals were then transferred for further investigation by the Shin Bet. Yesterday morning, the military operation in northern Samaria also expanded to Nur el-Shams refugee camp in Tulkarem. In a combined operational activity that took place last night in the village of Silat and Hartiya in the Jenin area, the soldiers arrested several wanted individuals who had been evading security forces for a very long time. According to the security forces announcement, the detainees planned to carry out attacks in recent months in the name of Hamas. Here at TBN Israel, we will continue reporting on developments in this region. So please keep spreading the truth and click on the subscribe button so that you remain tuned to the truth of what's happening in Israel, and pray for the situation and never miss another episode of Boots on the Ground. We conclude with a report about another terror incident that happened in Jerusalem. Police announced this week that 2 M16 type weapons, a pistol, ammunition, multiple magazines, a large amount of cash, and combat gear including scopes and bulletproof vests were seized during a search of a garage in the Kfar Akab neighborhood of East Jerusalem. For those of you who don't know the geography, Kfar Akab is located within the municipal boundaries of Jerusalem, and among others, staunch Hamas supporters live in that area. Just a few weeks ago, upon the release of a senior Hamas figure from prison under the deal, a Hamas procession took place there with terror flags and gunfire. So guys, please keep praying for the peace of Israel. Pray for our leaders to make the right decisions. Pray for our hostages who are held by Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Pray for all of the civilians that are affected by these terrorist organizations in this war across this region. And most importantly, let's unite in prayer for the peace of Jerusalem, because this is a spiritual war and we need your help in prayer, and God will win this war because He's on our side.
Hello, this is Mati here in Jerusalem with TBN Israel.
This is Yair Pinto from TBN Israel here in Jerusalem. TBN Israel is keeping viewers informed with Israel-focused news, culture, and what God is doing in this land.
Support TBN Israel today online at tbn.org/Israel. Thank you.